amazing pop stars and friends, Tina D'Angelo and Michelle Stoneley, who are going to be sharing with us tonight. And I want you to understand just the professionalism that comes with them, the knowledge base, just who these people are. Tina D'Angelo has been a healthcare professional for 21 years. She is a sonographer, a professional sonographer. She is married to Vince. They have 4 children, so she works full time. She builds APL Go. She has a huge, huge team. She's a corporate director. She's personally sponsored over 55 people, I think 60 now. I mean, she's just absolutely incredible. And the way she talks about these drops, you can just listen to it all day long and you're going to learn so much from her. So wanted you to know that about Tina. And then Michelle Stoneley, she was an award-winning landscaper in Utah, had her own company, closed it down to move to Baltimore so her husband could pursue his master's. She goes back to nursing school, gets her bachelor's of science in nursing, graduating magna cum laude, first in her class, full scholarship, cohort president. She's amazing. And she is a mom and a wife. She is currently a radiation oncology nurse at Johns Hopkins. You guys, very cool. This is who we get to learn from. So ladies, we're going to make you co-hosts.
Okay. So I'm going to get this started and we're going to go through this very quick. So I don't want to take up a lot of your guys' time. So with me, I'm all about anatomy and physiology. So I actually have 2 medical degrees. I actually look at people's organs for a living. So I have studied the human body extensively, and I also have a degree where I had to do training in all areas of radiology. So we're talking CT, MRI, nuclear medicine, angiography. I don't just do ultrasounds of babies. That's what people think. I actually do ultrasounds of everything in your body, including vascular. So I really geek out on body systems. I look at blood work. I unofficially diagnose. And when you can see it actually happening inside the body, it just clicks, right? Like if you're a visual learner, you really understand that. You can read something all day long, but then when you actually can see it, it makes a huge difference. So I can talk science all day because it gets me excited, because our drops, our plant DNA negative ion drops, they work amazing inside our body. So I'm going to try to not use too many technical terms. I'm just really going to go over this really, really easy. So let's talk about plant DNA and how that works at a cellular level. So a lot of companies, you're going to hear people say, oh, well, my supplements work at a cellular level. Well, that's not necessarily true. Plant DNA, believe it or not, is almost a 100% match to our own DNA. Isn't that amazing? That plants were put here on the earth for a reason. It makes sense that plant DNA and our DNA would be a perfect match. Plants are also a perfect match to animals. So we are all connected. And plant DNA being a perfect match to our own cells, our own bodies, it makes it 100% absorbable, because the plant DNA is so microscopically small that when you suck on the drop, it's able to absorb into the mucous membranes. The plant DNA is not the fleshy part of the plant. It is actually holds all the goodness that a plant, fruit, root can give us, which includes all the micros, the macros, the phytonutrients, all the minerals and vitamins. So anything that that particular botanical can give us is in the plant DNA. And so there's not even a specific measurement for plant DNA. It's like, how do you measure it? You can't say we have so much milligrams of vitamin D, or we have this much potassium or magnesium. It's all encompassing into that DNA. So here's the really cool thing about plant DNA. Because it is a perfect match to our own genetic code, a lot of times people will go take these DNA tests because they want to go find out what mom and dad gave you, right? They're kind of variants in our DNA. Well, plant DNA, it actually will go inside your bloodstream directly to the cells, and it will find the deficiencies even in your own genetic code. So that's really exciting. And I'm going to kind of go off on here on another tangent, but there is a gene variant called MTHFR that makes more than half the population unable to methylize or absorb their minerals and vitamins. When you guys are swallowing those pills, swallowing those shakes and powders, half the population can't even absorb it, and it's going down the toilet. But with plant DNA, it bypasses the digestive system, so we don't even have to worry about that. And the people that are unable to methylize or absorb, these botanicals will go into the cells no matter what. So that's super exciting. So why is bypassing the digestive system so important? Again, because the digestive system is sluggish. You know, when you're swallowing large molecules like food and our plants, they have to be broken down by the stomach and the intestines. And sometimes it takes up to 24 to 36 hours to digest your food. Isn't that crazy? So are you going to get an immediate health benefit if your body has to take a day or two to digest? And going through the digestive system, it can take up to 3 months for cell turnover and change. 3 months before people actually feel a difference from the botanicals they're ingesting. With plant DNA, it's an immediate health benefit, whether they feel it or not. It's immediate. So I want to go over the benefits of negative ions and why this company with the Accumula SA has something so unique, something so special, something so unduplicatable, and it is really the negative ions that make this so special. So negative ions actually are in every single drop, and they are kind of the key to how that plant DNA can permeate the cells. So negative ions make it so there's no barriers in between the cells, especially cells that are deficient or changing. They put off a positive charge. So the negative ions are able to permeate that cell immediately. But there are a lot of health benefits to negative ions. And in order to know what a negative ion is, let's talk about what positive ions are. Positive ions are man-made. Cell phones, your laptops, your televisions, your air conditioners, the radio, the exhaust fumes, chemicals, electrical appliances, pesticides, dust, radiation, cigarette smoke. These are all things that we're exposed to on a day-to-day basis, and they are actually the cause of most free radical changes in our bodies and cells. So negative ions are natural. They're from nature, and they're really, really small. A negative ion is also called an anion, and we get most of our negative ions from waterfalls, being out in nature, the woods, the beach, lightning storms. They say that people that live near the beach live on average 10 years longer than the rest of the population. There is definitely something about being with close to negative ions. Sorry if it's loud. Vince won't stop. So I want to just go over real quickly all of the effects that negative ions have. So remember that all of our plant DNA is holding these negative ions. So our plant DNA is infused with a negative ion charge. So once you suck on the lozenge, not only is the plant DNA going into our cells and start to work immediately on the cells, but the negative, you also get all the benefits of negative ions to your cells. Negative ions are the nature's biggest free radical defense. So anything with free radicals, diseases, cell changes, negative ions go directly to start combating that. So negative ions, blood purification and pH balancing. They enhance cell metabolism and their antioxidation. They strengthen the immune system. They speed up our recovery. It helps you overcome headaches, anxiety, depression. The prevention of atherosclerosis, that means cleaning your arteries and veins. It helps with normalizing blood pressure, helps with overcoming insomnia, sleep disorders. It balances the autonomic nervous system. It helps with strong bones, and it helps with smooth breathing. So that is really, really exciting because we get all those benefits just from every single drop that we take. So I wanted to do a little research because we talked about how there's no stimulants or allergens in plant DNA. And I'm going to be honest, there isn't a lot of studies on plant DNA because it's so new. But what I found from my research on allergens is it comes from the digestive system. So because you're ingesting the fleshy part of the plant, all the allergens are coming from the digestive process itself. So because we use plant DNA that's absorbed and not going through the digestive system, our body doesn't have the reaction to specific allergens or the effect of strong stimulants, because again, it's through the digestive tract. So I just wanted to clarify that real quick. And I think that's it. I think that's what I have on the science. So I let Michelle do the next one.
So I just wanted to talk about botanicals. Like Erin mentioned at the beginning, I was a landscaper for about a decade. And so I worked with plants. I was in the dirt all day long. And, I was thinking about this recently that probably the happiest, most healthy, carefree time in my life was when I was a landscaper. I was outside 9 months of the year. A lot of my clients were pretty wealthy. They lived next to rivers. They had waterfalls in their yards. And I just was healthy, carefree. And it dawned on me, those were negative ions. I was just being bombarded with beautiful negative ions all day, every day. So I want to talk about why botanicals are so important. We talk about whole food nutrition with these drops, and I want you to understand what whole food nutrition means. So one of the terms you might hear us say is beyond organic. And what that means is there are certain regulations, certain standards that a company has to have to be certified organic. One of the biggest things is that they have to not apply pesticides or certain substances to their land for 3 years before harvest. That's just applying it. That's not what's in it. That's not what is that is not what is in the air. That is not what is, in the seeds, things like that. So it's really important to understand that with APL Go, we actually achieve higher standards than organic. We achieve beyond organic, which means we far exceed all of the different things that are regulated. And I did some research into the company that we use. We get different suppliers or different raw materials from different suppliers, but our main supplier is Bara Herbs. They're an Israeli company. They're in northern Israel, and they've been an established company for decades. They have impeccable standards. I mean, the more research I did on them, I just thought they were so impressive as a company, and they really believe in the healing properties of botanicals and herbs. And I think that's one of the reasons our company was drawn to them, is they really have a holistic approach to how they're harvesting, how they're growing and collecting these plants. So one of the things that's important to understand with whole food nutrition, whole food means it's not man-made. There's no processing to it, right? When we talk about whole food, we think about carrots, we think about fruits and vegetables. We don't think about ice cream. We don't think about crackers that come from a box. Whole food nutrition is exactly what we're talking about with plant DNA. So plant DNA, the whole food nutrition we're getting is all of the phytonutrients, the macronutrients, the vitamins, minerals, without any of the allergens. We're getting whole food nutrition at its most pure form in these drops. Now, when we talk about halal and kosher certification, I want you to understand that that's a big deal. The halal and kosher certifications are not something that every supplement company has, because it takes really stringent manufacturing processes to be certified with these two distinctions. And, as I looked at it, this is for the traditional Jewish faith, and then anyone of Muslim faith, that they really look to these. And so anybody that we're approaching that is concerned about that, they should have a huge reassurance that this company exceeds, again, the standards that are required to get those certifications. Now, I want to spend the bulk of this portion of my time on FDA registration, because I know that there's some confusion there. When we talk about FDA registration, we're not talking about FDA approval. And that's important to know for a couple of reasons. The first is APL Go went through a lot of hoops to get FDA registration. Any supplement company in the US does not have to be FDA registered. Companies that are bringing in products out of the US, for example, us bringing in these lozenges from Moldova, we are required to register. A lot of the companies that are coming from out of the country, they circumvent that by going through a third-party manufacturer. So they may have a really nice pure product in the country they come from, but they don't go through the process of getting the FDA registration. It's time consuming, it's expensive. They'll just get their product made at a lower quality with less regulations to avoid that registration and to avoid the cost and all of the standardization that comes through it. So I was so impressed that our company came and, a couple of years ago, you guys, this was something that took years to get. We would have launched earlier in the US, but it was very important to Sergey that we had this FDA registration. So I did so much research on this, because one of the three-way calls we did this week, somebody was very hung up on this. And so I wanted to make sure that I was knowledgeable to share that with you guys. So when we're talking about registration versus approval, there's no such thing as approval for a supplement. Supplements are an unregulated industry. When we're talking about FDA approval, the FDA only regulates certain things. So be really aware of this, you guys. If somebody is asking you if we're FDA approved, no supplement on the planet is FDA approved. FDA registration means that we are allowing the FDA to come into our facilities at any time. They can inspect our manufacturing process. They can see that what we're claiming is what we're doing, and that we have very, very high standards. And this is something that they can pull at any time. So if we dip below those standards and those regulations, our FDA registration can be pulled. So that speaks to the high level of standards and manufacturing that we hold with APL Go. So it's really important that when you're talking about FDA registration, they can, FDA can approve things like medical devices, like a pacemaker. They can approve drugs, but that takes rigorous clinical trials, things like that. And it basically proves that the benefit outweighs the risk. That's all FDA approval is. It's saying that the benefit of whatever the device or drug is outweighs the risk of taking it. So, we don't have any risks associated with taking these. So even if we had FDA approval, it would just confirm that. So I want that to be really something you're clear on. So when you're talking to people about it, that you understand how important our FDA registration is, but also that it isn't the same as being FDA approved. And then I wanted to move on to, we can't eat our way to healthy, that fourth bullet point. I was thinking about when I was a landscaper. I'm going to share a quick story. I had a client who asked me to design their yard, their flowers, their all of their landscaping. And I did it. And I always offered my clients that I would install it or that they could install it. And this particular client wanted it, they wanted to install it, me to install it, but they didn't want to pay for good soil. So they said, I will get the soil and you bring the plants and install the landscaping. So I did. When I got there, he had purchased the cheapest soil he could find. And I dare say you couldn't even call it soil, it was silt. It was just like dust and it wouldn't hold water. And I said to him, like, all of these plants are going to die. You're going to pay all of this money, because he couldn't see the importance of good soil. So I have 2 words for you when we're talking about eating our way to healthy. Soil depletion. Soil depletion is so real, and it's something that people don't understand. I have had some very healthy people that I have talked to about these drops, and they believe that there's no reason that we need supplements in our lives. They think if we eat healthy and we eat organic, that we are covered, and that is simply not true. When we're talking about soil depletion means that these fields that are being harvested over and over and over are not being enriched. It means that the farmers are not putting compost, they're not putting enrichments, they're not putting amendments like organisms, earthworms, they're not putting waste products. You know, any of you that compost, all of those broken down waste products put nutrients back in the soil. When we're talking about massive farming, that's not happening. So you can be eating organic, even food from a farmer's market, and you just cannot guarantee that the soil is giving the nutrients to the plant like it might have 50 or 100 years ago. So that's very important, that even people that are uber healthy, exercising, eating organic, everything it possibly could do, they will still benefit from these drops, because there's no way to get complete nutrition out of the things that we buy at the grocery store anymore. It's just an unfortunate truth. So when we're talking about, again, beyond organic, that goes hand in hand with that soil depletion. Beyond organic means not only are we avoiding pesticides, but we're also making sure that those enrichments and amendments in the soil are there. And I think it's really important when you're talking to people who are going to try and shut you down, like, well, I eat organic and I take my vitamins and I do all these things, I don't need another supplement. Just let them know that soil depletion, even I'm an organic gardener. I grow a lot of my own food in the summer. I grow peppers and beans and tomatoes and all sorts of things. And I am very, very stringent about what I put into my soil. But I also know I can't control what's in the air. I can't control what my neighbor does. And so it's very important to just know that we are not getting complete nutrition like we did, like I said, 50, 100, or even, further back. And finally, I just want to talk about sugars. How many of you have people say, supplements can't have sugar in them? I can't take a supplement that has added sugar. Or they say, how come there are 5 calories in this? How come there is molasses and beet sugar? That's not healthy. So I want to talk about sugars, and I'm going to keep this really simple because the discussion on sugars could be a long one. But there are basically 4 simple sugars, and simple sugars are things that are made in nature. I'm just going to tell those to you. You don't have to write them down, but just so you understand them. I'm lactose intolerant, which means I can't digest the sugar that comes from dairy products. That's one of the healthy normal simple sugars that we have is lactose. We have fructose. Fructose comes from fruit and honey. We have glucose, which is fruits and veggies, and also honey can be a glucose. And then we have sucrose, which is a plant source, but it's what you think of with your table sugar is sucrose. So that comes from like a cane sugar. It's a plant-based. Those 4 sugars, you can see plenty of other sugars, some things that hide like, high fructose corn syrup. Maltose is a barley-based sugar that you'll get. Galactose is dairy and glucose. There's lots of other sugars. But the point being that if you put a spoonful of sugar from the white sugar that you bake with in your mouth, the amount of sugar that's in that is different than if you ate an entire cantaloupe or 5 apples in one day. They may have the same amount of sugar, but the delivery is different because that sugar that you got from the jar with your coffee has no fibers. It has no delivery except it goes straight in. It is processed differently. It's metabolized differently. So the one thing that's really fantastic is the type of sugars we're using, the molasses and the beet sugar. Both of those actually have antioxidant properties and nutrients in them. And they also are metabolized differently. They're metabolized through the liver. And when you have fructose, which comes from fruit, it doesn't actually change your blood sugar or your insulin levels. Did you guys know that? That if you eat an apple and you have sugars that come from an apple, even things that have higher sugar content like watermelon and grape, they don't affect the blood sugars or the insulin levels like if you ate a brownie. They just don't, because they're metabolized through the liver, and it's a different metabolism than when it goes straight to the pancreas and the bloodstream. So that's really important to note, that when they designed these lozenges, they were very careful about the sweeteners that they chose. They chose molasses. And in the research I've been doing, my guess is that it's probably bootstrap molasses, which is a little bit more bitter and has higher antioxidants. I can't say that for sure, but as I did some research about the types that we use, that's what I came across. And then the beet sugar, we're talking 1 gram of sugar, you guys. 1 gram of sugar per drop, 5 to 6 calories per drop. To get what would be in like a bowl of ice cream, you would have to like take 40 drops in a day. So when people are saying they're worried about the sugar content of these drops, you need to reframe that for them and help remind them that this is not a simple sugar that's coming in a processed form. It's a glucose or a fructose, which is a natural, simple sugar, and your body is going to metabolize that differently. So I hope that's helpful. The thing to remember about these natural sugars versus added sugars is, like I said, they have vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, you get fiber. It's the full nutrient package when we're talking about simple sugars or natural sugars versus added sugars. So don't let people deter you by telling you that supplements can't have sugar. I guarantee if you go look at your protein shakes or your protein bars, they're going to have added sugars, and they have to label it on their label as an added sugar, because it is not something natural. It is not something that occurs in the food naturally. So I hope that helps to clarify some of that.